A week after I finally paid off my condo, my sister arrived and declared that our parents had sanctioned her family to move in. She demanded me to leave and find another place. My name is Ella, and I was 32 when I learned that in my family, ownership was just a temporary loan, especially when someone else decided they needed what was mine more. What happened next wasn't just a dispute. It was a devastating betrayal that proved exactly how far some family members would go to get what they felt entitled to. A week after I paid off my condo, every single cent, that fateful letter from the bank arrived. It was a Thursday morning, a plain envelope, no fireworks, no confetti, just a single line of text that declared my mortgage was paid in full. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I just sat on the edge of my couch, rereading it until the words blurred, half expecting them to rearrange themselves into a mistake if I looked away for too long. I taped it to my fridge with a dumb, cow-shaped magnet I'd had since college. It felt like the biggest win of my life, but also something I couldn't quite trust yet. Like if I relaxed, someone would tell me it was all a dream. My condo wasn't impressive. It was 2 bedrooms in Chicago, old appliances, floors that squeaked in the same spots every night like they were reminding me they'd been there longer than I had. The second bedroom was a makeshift half-storage, half-office, my solution because I worked from home and couldn't afford a place with a real office when I bought it 5 years earlier. But it was mine. Every dent, every shortcut, every cheap fix told a story about how hard I'd worked. I skipped vacations, drove a car old enough to vote, and learned to fix leaky sinks from YouTube instead of calling plumbers. While my friends went out on weekends, I picked up freelance gigs and food delivery shifts. When they posted beach photos, I counted grocery receipts. For years, this condo was the finish line I crawled toward. So, when my younger sister, Natalie, showed up unannounced that Tuesday afternoon, holding a giant iced coffee like she owned the place, I briefly thought she'd come to congratulate me. That was my first mistake. She didn't say hi. She didn't wait for an invitation. She walked straight past me, her eyes roaming over everything like she was inspecting a rental. She peeked into the second bedroom, the bathroom, even my tiny office closet. "This place is bigger than I remember," she said finally, hands on her hips. Thanks," I replied, utterly confused. She nodded like she'd just confirmed something important in her head. Then she turned and looked straight at me. "We've agreed this should be a family place now." I blinked. "Excuse me." She said it again, slower, like I was missing the obvious. "Mom and Dad think it makes sense. You don't really need all this space." I laughed. It just slipped out. A sharp, awkward sound. "You're joking." Natalie didn't smile. "Mark's hours got cut," she continued, completely ignoring my disbelief. "Daycare is ridiculous and you're just here alone." She shrugged. "It's kind of selfish to keep all this space to yourself." Selfish. That word landed harder than anything else she'd said. I looked around my condo, like maybe she was seeing something I wasn't. Some hidden ballroom. Some extra wing I'd forgotten about. "Natalie," I said slowly, "this isn't a family home. I bought it. I paid for it." She waved her hand like that was a technicality. "Come on. You don't even use the second bedroom. We'll move in, and you can find something smaller. You'll be fine." She said it like she was announcing the weather. "We'll need to be in by the end of next month," she added, already picking up her coffee. "That should give you enough time." I just stood there. I'd heard some wild things from my family over the years, but this was new territory. This wasn't borrowing money or asking for favors. This was erasing me entirely. "You already talked to Mom and Dad?" I asked. "Of course," she said. "They agree. It's best for everyone." "And what do they think I'm going to do?" I asked, my voice rising. "Just leave." She sighed like I was being dramatic. "You'll understand once you have kids." That made me laugh again. This time it was truly bitter. "You don't get to decide that," I said. "You're not moving in here." Natalie paused at the door, her hand on the knob. She turned and gave me that smile, the one she used when she assumed things would go her way eventually. "We've already talked to Mom and Dad," she repeated. And then she left. I stood in my living room long after the door closed, listening to the fridge kick on with its familiar groan. My eyes drifted back to the mortgage letter on the fridge. For a second, I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. I hadn't. That night, I couldn't focus on work. My brain kept looping the same words. Family place. Selfish. Like my years of sacrifice didn't matter. Like DNA gave them ownership over my life. I called my boyfriend Caleb and told him everything. He listened quietly, didn't interrupt, didn't try to smooth it over. "That's not normal," he said finally. "Ella, that's not okay." I'd spent my whole life being told this was normal. Natalie was 4 years younger, the golden child. Teachers loved her. Neighbors praised her. When she forgot assignments, my parents said she was overwhelmed. When I got a B instead of an A, they asked what I'd done wrong. I mowed lawns while she focused on school. My parents paid for her camps, her lessons, her prom dress, while telling me money was tight when my car needed repairs. When she went to a private university with a tuition that made my stomach drop, my parents co-signed her loans without blinking. I went to a state school on scholarships and part-time jobs, working early morning shifts and late nights just to stay afloat. When I bought the condo, Natalie came by once, walked through it, wrinkled her nose. "It's cozy," she'd said. "I could never live somewhere like this, but good for you." That comment stuck with me. Fast forward, she married Mark. Nice guy, quiet middle school science teacher. They rented a newer, 3-bedroom apartment, gym, rooftop deck, everything my place wasn't. Then they had a baby. Daycare costs hit. Mark's hours got cut. Natalie quit her part-time job. And suddenly my condo wasn't small anymore. The calls started the next morning. First Mom, her sweet voice masking disappointment. Then Dad, same speech, different tone. "Family helps family. You have more than you need. Think of the baby." By lunchtime, a distant aunt texted me like we'd been close all along. That evening, I sat on my couch staring at my phone, realizing something had fundamentally changed. This wasn't about sharing. This was about control. And for the first time in my life, I felt something harden in my chest. I wasn't a kid anymore. I wasn't living under their roof. I paid my own bills. I owned my home. And I wasn't giving it up. Not this time. Sunday dinner had always been my parents' favorite weapon. They never called it an argument, never called it a confrontation. It was just dinner. Garlic bread, lasagna. Polite smiles stretched tight across faces that already knew how the night would end. So when my mom called Friday afternoon and said, "Everyone will be there. We'll talk calmly," I knew exactly what she meant. Calmly meant together. Together meant outnumbered. Still, I said yes. Not because I wanted to go, but because I wanted to hear it said out loud. I wanted to know how far they were willing to push. By the time Sunday came, my phone hadn't stopped buzzing for 2 days. Natalie sent long texts about how this was temporary, about family sacrifices, about how Mark had made a spreadsheet so I could see the numbers. My dad left voicemails reminding me to think big picture. My mom kept saying, "You're being tense." By Sunday afternoon, my nerves felt like live wires. Caleb offered to come with me. I shook my head. "Not yet," I said. "I need to do this myself." My parents' house looked exactly the same as it always had. Same peeling wallpaper in the hallway. Same couch that sank in the middle because Dad refused to replace it. Walking in felt like stepping backward in time. The table was already set when I arrived. Natalie and Mark were seated on one side, sitting close together like a united front. Natalie's hand rested possessively on a thick folder in front of her. Mark stared at the table like he was trying to memorize the grain. My parents hovered in the kitchen, exchanging glances. "Hey," said. Natalie smiled brightly. Too brightly. Perfect timing. "We're just about to eat." The food barely had time to cool before she started. "We only need the condo for a year," she said softly, like she was offering me a gift. "Maybe less." "A year?" I repeated. "Well, depending," she said quickly. "Once we get back on our feet." She slid the folder toward me. Mark cleared his throat. We worked out a plan. Budget, timeline. I opened it. Pages of numbers, charts, clean columns. Rent listed as 0. Utilities cut neatly in half. No HOA fees, no maintenance, no repairs. Like the place ran on good intentions. You'd cover utilities? I asked. Natalie nodded. Obviously that's it. Mom leaned forward. Honey, it's temporary. Think of the baby. She needs her own room. I looked at Natalie. You rent a 3-bedroom now. It's too expensive, she said flatly. Then get a smaller place. Her smile tightened. Why should we uproot everything when you have space just sitting there unused? I felt my jaw clench. Because it's my home. Dad set down his fork like he was about to deliver wisdom from a mountaintop. This is about family working together. You have the room. They have the need. It's common sense. I tapped the folder. You wrote this like I already agreed. Silence. Natalie finally said, We figured you'd be reasonable once you saw the numbers. I subtly flipped to the lease page I'd printed earlier and slipped it into the folder without her noticing. I looked up your lease, I said calmly. Natalie froze. What? It's public, I said. 3 months rent penalty for early termination, right? Mark shifted in his chair. Natalie's face flushed. That's none of your business. You're making it my business, I replied. You want to move into my home to avoid paying penalties on yours. Be honest. Mom frowned. Is that true? Natalie snapped. We just need a fresh start. Then be honest about that, I said. Don't pretend this is about fairness. Mark finally spoke, his voice low. We're just trying to find a solution that works for everyone. For everyone. I echoed. Or for you. He didn't answer. Natalie's voice rose. You don't even use the 2nd bedroom. It's just sitting there while we're drowning. And whose fault is that? I asked quietly. She slammed her hand on the table. We're family. Family also respects boundaries, I said. You don't get to decide my home isn't mine because you made bad financial choices. Dad sighed. Let's calm down. No, I said, standing. You all came here ready to guilt me into giving up my home. I'm not doing it. Natalie's voice shook. So, you'd rather see us homeless? You're not homeless, I said. You have a lease. You have options. Just not mine. I grabbed my jacket. Thanks for dinner, I said. Good luck with the lease. No one stopped me. The text started before I got home. Natalie, we can still work this out. Mom, family comes first. Dad, disappointed. I didn't reply. A week passed. Then one night after work, I noticed scratches near my lock. They were small, easy to miss, but I'd lived there 5 years. I knew every mark on that door. My stomach dropped. I upgraded the deadbolt the next day, installed 2 cameras, one in the hallway, one inside. For 2 nights, nothing happened. On the 3rd night, my phone buzzed at 2:37 a.m. Motion detected. I opened the app. Natalie stood outside my door, had pulled up, a screwdriver glinting in her hand. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't about family anymore. It was about entitlement, and it was about to get ugly. The sound that woke me wasn't the phone itself. It was the vibration rattling against the nightstand. Sharp and urgent, like something trying to claw its way into my sleep. I squinted at the screen. Motion detected at your door. For half a second, my brain tried to rationalize it. A neighbor. Someone drunk on the wrong floor. The building settling. Then I opened the camera feed. The image was grainy and black and white. But there was no mistaking her. Natalie. Hood pulled low, hair shoved out at the sides, shoulders hunched like she knew she wasn't supposed to be there. In her right hand, something metallic caught the hallway light as she moved it toward my lock. My chest went tight so fast it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I hit record. My hands are shaking, but my movements felt oddly calm, like my body had switched into some other mode. I slid out of bed, stayed low, and dialed 911. There's someone trying to break into my condo, I whispered when the dispatcher answered. I have video. She asked for my address, told me to stay inside, told me officers were close. On the screen, Natalie worked the lock like she'd done it before, like she expected it to give, like she thought I wasn't home. The hallway lights flicked on automatically. She froze for just a second. She looked over her shoulder. Then she went back to the lock. I felt something inside me crack. Not anger, not fear exactly. Something colder. The final piece of denial, snapping into place. This wasn't desperation. This was entitlement. Footsteps appeared on the camera feed. 2 officers moving quickly down the hallway. Natalie didn't see them until they were almost on top of her. Ma'am, step back from the door. She jumped, spun around, stammering immediately. I forgot my keys. This is my sister's place. I stayed behind the door until one of the officers knocked and identified himself. When I opened it, my legs felt like they might give out. I held up my phone, still recording. That's her, I said. That's my sister, and that's a screwdriver. The officer watched the playback. Natalie's face drained of color. They asked her for ID. She tried to laugh it off. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. They cuffed her right there in the hallway. I wasn't smug. I wasn't relieved. I just felt exhausted, like my body was 10 steps behind my brain. One officer stayed with me to take my statement. The other walked Natalie down the hall, her wrists red against the metal cuffs. 5 minutes later, Mark came running down the hallway in sweatpants, hair sticking up, panic written all over his face. What's going on? He asked, breathless. She tried to break in, I said flatly. He looked at the officer, then at Natalie. She thought she still had a spare. I never gave her one, I said. Mark rubbed his face. He didn't argue after that. Just muttered something about calling a lawyer and followed them out. When the door finally closed and the hallway went quiet, I locked the deadbolt and leaned against it, staring at nothing. The cameras kept recording long after everything stopped. The next morning, I called off work for a few hours. I wanted everything documented before the story got rewritten for me. I went to the police station and handed over the footage. They pulled the 911 audio, gave me a case number, told me the video made things pretty straightforward. When I got home, I backed everything up twice. Once to a thumb drive, once to a cloud folder with a password I'd never used before. I printed the incident report and slid it into the same folder as my mortgage papers. Ownership meet protection. By noon, my phone was exploding. Mom called first. How could you do this to your sister? She demanded. She tried to break into my home at 2 a.m, I said. I didn't do anything. You didn't have to call the police. Mom snapped. She had a screwdriver in my lock, I replied. What exactly was I supposed to do? Family handles things privately, she said. Does privately mean pretending it didn't happen? I asked. She didn't answer. Dad called an hour later. She made a mistake, he said. Don't ruin her life over this. I was asleep in my own home, I said. I'm not apologizing for protecting it. He muttered something about me being cold. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Texts rolled in from relatives who hadn't checked on me in years. She didn't mean it. Drop the charges. She has a baby. I ignored them all. 2 days later, I found something else. Court records are public if you know where to look. Natalie had a small fraud charge from 5 years earlier. Deferred sentence, probation, fine paid. Nothing dramatic, but not nothing either. This time, the judge didn't have much patience. She pleaded guilty. Took a short sentence. 3 months, a permanent record. Mark texted me while she was inside. Long message. Stress, bills, daycare, life coming too fast. She was just trying to keep a roof over our kid's head, he wrote. I read it twice. Saved it. Didn't respond. Their finances unraveled fast after that. Lease penalty, short-term rental at a higher rate. Mark carrying everything on a teacher's salary while Natalie couldn't find work with a record. 3 months later, Mom told me they'd moved in with her and Dad. That's between you and them, I said. She didn't like that answer. A month after Natalie got out, Dad stopped by my condo to drop off mail that had gone to their house by mistake. He looked older, tired. Your sister's having a rough time, he said quietly. She made her choices, I replied. She says you hate her. I don't hate her, I said. I'm just done being the person everyone leans on while calling me selfish. He didn't argue, just nodded, handed me the mail, and left. Life went back to normal faster than I expected. Work, gym, fixing the sticky window I'd ignored for years, painting the hallway wall properly this time. Quiet. Later, Mom told me Natalie wanted to clear the air. I agreed to meet on one condition. My home is off the table, I said. No debates, no surprises. Mom agreed. I didn't know it yet, but that conversation would be the last illusion to fall. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at my parents' house. Neutral ground, Mom said, like that phrase alone could rewind everything that had happened. Natalie was already there when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with her arms crossed tight across her chest. Chin lifted in that familiar way she used whenever she felt cornered, but refused to show it. Mark sat beside her, shoulders slumped, eyes fixed on the wood grain like he was trying to disappear into it. I took the chair across from them. All right, I said. You wanted to talk. Natalie didn't waste time. You didn't have to call the cops, she said immediately, her voice sharp. Family doesn't do that to each other. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something settle into place. You tried to break into my home at 2:30 in the morning, I said. That wasn't a family conversation. That was a crime. I was desperate, she snapped. You wouldn't listen. You left us no choice. There was a choice, I said. You just didn't like it. She rolled her eyes. Do you have any idea how hard it is with a baby with bills? We needed help. You wanted a free house, I replied evenly. Mark flinched. Natalie glared at me. We deserved help, she said. You don't have kids. You don't understand what it's like to watch space go to waste while you're drowning. The words hit, but they didn't sink in the way they used to. Space I worked for, I said. Space I paid for while you were calling it small and laughing at it years ago. That was different, she shot back. You're holding on to old stuff. No, I said. I'm holding on to reality. She leaned forward. You ruined my record. You ruined my life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You picked up the screwdriver, I said. You showed up at my door. You made that choice, not me. Silence filled the kitchen, thick and uncomfortable. Mark finally spoke, his voice low. She just means it didn't have to go this far. It went exactly as far as she pushed it, I said. I'm not carrying that for her. Natalie's hands curled into fists on the table. One day, she said, her eyes sharp. You'll need help. Don't expect us to be there. I stood up. Good, I said. That way, everything's clear. She blinked like she hadn't expected that answer. I hope you figure things out, I added. But my home is off limits forever. No debates, no showing up, no surprises. Then I walked out. Mom tried a few more times after that to pull everyone back together. Family dinners, holidays, neutral conversations. I told her the same thing every time. If my home comes up even once, I'm leaving. Eventually, she stopped asking. Life got quiet. Not lonely, quiet. I settled into a routine that felt like mine for the first time. Work in the mornings, gym in the evenings, weekends spent fixing the things I'd put off for years. I replaced the sticky window, painted the hallway wall properly instead of patching it, bought cheap plants for the windowsill, and somehow kept them alive. I upgraded my desk chair, mounted a real shelf in the office closet instead of stacking boxes, got rid of the old couch I'd been hanging on to out of habit, and bought one that didn't sag in the middle. Little things, ordinary things. Through the family grapevine, I heard Natalie picked up a part-time job at a daycare. Mark took extra tutoring hours. They eventually found a small, older rental farther from the city, cheaper. Theirs. I didn't reach out, not out of anger, but out of finality. A year later, my condo looked better than it ever had. Fresh paint on every wall, New locks on both doors. The squeaky floorboard near the bedroom, finally fixed after years of promising myself I'd get to it. Sometimes I'd come home after work, lock the deadbolt, and just stand there for a second, listening to the quiet. No surprise visits, no guilt trips, no phone calls telling me I was selfish. The silence wasn't empty. It was steady. I'd sit on my couch with the TV off, plants catching the afternoon light, and feel the weight of the last year finally lift from my shoulders. Not victory, not revenge. Just boundaries that stayed where I put them. And peace. Real peace inside a home that was mine in every way that mattered.